We ain't the same, ain't no debate. Confused, I'm making break by the proudest. Get it.
Come on, let's hope two more games, right? Oh, welcome back to the cast today. It's Quick Shot, Chronicler, and Dagda jumping into game number 4. Before we get into the draft, which you two have selected blue side, Dagda, I have a question for you. You might know the answer. When was the last time that a European team beat an LPL team? That's fine, I won't put you on the spot for too long. 2018,
yeah.
Fnatic beat EDG. It has been that long since an LEC squad has been able to take down an LPL team. Chronicler is smiling smugly here.
Well, I don't know.
Jump into what could be the last game for Europe here at MSI 23.
If you asked that question about LCK teams, it would have been a bit more painful. So I'm just happy you skipped me and went for Rob instead. As I do like the Annie being taken away. I think that the Annie in particular is a pick that, even though BLG was able to win the game in the end, provided so much consistent backline threat, and the Lulu actually going to get taken away here.
Does Shun consider in Italy, because it is now available and unbanned? I would prefer not to, from what I've seen this tournament, but it is possible as the Maokai will be the final ban.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out great for them in the JDG series, so maybe they've learned from the error of their ways. But question now is, what do they go for in that first pick rotation? Because the Maokai taken away, the Annie taken away as well, were two of the big picks we saw. And it's going to be the Aphelios taken away for Hansama.
Going to swap up the matchup. Would not be surprising if BLG just end up going for the Jinx here. Is, even without the Lulu, still very strong pick, one of the main AD carries at the moment. The range advantage is something.
Oh,
okay.
Come on, Lucian Nami, throw it down. I will say, huge kudos to the analyst desk, as well as, like, obviously a lot of people watching around the world. We talked about what is the answer. How do you deal with the Aphelios and the Lulu? Now, with the Lucian Nami locked in, I will tell you this now. Dracos is sitting somewhere fuming, wondering, because the LEC as a region has struggled, first of all, to execute this pick, but also to play into it at times as well.
But look, I'm going to be honest, when Elk and On have just been absolutely destroying Hansam and Mickey and Lane, just going back towards something that's even harder at that is just going to be absolutely fantastic for BLG. And I think that's where you're seeing, I was going to say what the answer is going to be with the Aphelios. I thought they might go for the Thresh, but it's actually going to be the Prom. They just want to make sure they can try and survive this somehow, but there's going to be so much poke that can come through so quickly from Elk and On that bot side.
Oh yeah, and even though the Braum will be able to keep you alive, it's going to give you next to no agency in lane. Yeah. Jungle ganks and setup and skirmish and notwithstanding, it's going to mean that Elk and On are going to have the priority from basically the get-go here, as Cassante is going to get locked in. I do like that. Very, very strong flex pick that has hit a lot of the second rotation bans.
And while the bottom lane may have a very tough time here for G2 Esports, what we have seen across all 3 previous games is that the bottom lane performance, even when falling behind, has not actually been the primarily defining characteristic of these games. I do think it's going to be way harder this time around, please don't get me wrong, especially because Gwen, who's found herself in the ban pool in phase 2 a lot, is now also locked in for bid.
The thing is though, this is an answer into the Cassante, but it doesn't guarantee the Cassante is going top, right? So you can actually flex this into mid lane here for Caps and have Broken Blade now get the counter pick in that top side. So I'm actually curious exactly what the plan is, because even when you're looking at it, BLG, they're still banning away some of these more mid lane oriented picks, except for Broken Blade's Cassiopeia, which also is a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was actually about to say that's a really interesting read from BLG, because they're basically saying we know that it might not be top Cassante, we're still banning Cassio, but they also picked the Gwen, so leaves me wondering whether they want to just match the Gwen wherever the Cassante ends up going, as the Ahri will get taken away. Makes complete sense, because Yagao, even in that last game, right, the final fight, able to get on top of Hans, hit the charm, was a really big part of what made the team fights from BLG so lethal.
I think as well, if you're trying to flex this Cassante into mid lane, the ability for the Ahri, look, she won't kill the Cassante at any point in time, but at least being able to get good roams off and making sure that it's very uncomfortable, I think is going to be a good one. The Yasuo respect ban is not what I expect to see after that game 1.
The crazy thing is that's both Yasuo and Cassio. That could be both mid and top. Maybe more specifically for a team like G2 Esports. Obviously with that Ahri banned away as well, we need to find out what this next lock-in will be. And let's talk about the jungle pool for a little bit. Sejuani still open and available. The Vi and the Maokai have been removed. Sion will be the final ban here from G2 Esports. So as we move into phase 2 picks, BLG1 would assume the jungle pick comes in now. wait to see what's more likely for those solo lane options. And if that Nidalee is being hovered, please tell me why we're a little nervous about it. Maybe not, because it may end up being the Viego. Dagda, what direction do you think you prefer to see?
I definitely don't want the Nidalee in this regard. You have some long-range poke with the Culling, but that's kind of it. You don't really have great setup, so he is just going to go across towards the Viego. And I think here, you're kind of going right. Like, Yagao is definitely going to take something like a Lissandra or something along these lines in the mid lane and trying to set up for this strong 2v2 in the mid jungle. But again, you can just flex Caps in towards the mid lane on this K'Sante, and now you're going to be in a pretty fine spot. Like, you're not going to be worried about a lot of the CC of it set up, because K'Sante has a ton of dashes, the ability to hop away, and there you go. They're actually going to swap. Well, again, keep that flexibility open with the Gragas now locked in, but actually both of them now not so hot. Okay, I was going to say it's the Gwen, so they take the Jace.
So that's going to assume what? Gragas in the jungle, then K'Sante, Jace, we figure out mid or top, depending on whatever your guy's going to be running in the mid lane. One thing I will highlight, with the Lucian Nami into an Aphelios, a K'Sante, potentially Jace, one would assume BLG may want to be looking to hit that gas pedal, go quick, win it earlier on in the stages. So I want to see what mid lane they lock in. It will be the Lissandra now.
Yeah, you're just going all out on early to mid game fights and tempo, right? The amount of snowballing potential that you have with Lucian Nami on Guildforce Mandate Spike, and just even the core of Viego and Lissandra as a combo is so insanely strong. If you're able to single out someone, hit a stun, have the Lissandra setup, blow them up, and you start a combination of the Lissandra Thralls combined with the Viego resets, add to that the explosive power of Lucian Nami, and this composition works very well. On the flip side, if you start losing early, it does become very hard, I think, to play into G2.
And that's the thing, I think you have options here as G2 to try and play for those early wins, especially when you look at Broken Blade in this top side. We've seen G2 every single game in this series so far give resources towards that top side. If you're now able to get those onto a Jace, you have a lot of poke damage that can try and come through before these fights start off onto Yagao and Elk, and just make it very uncomfortable. And even then, as you start to reach in towards the later stages, you still have two big damage threats with the Aphelios coming online as well. So I like what G2 are bringing to the table.
Let's talk a little bit about the lane matchup specifically. That Jace is locked into the top lane. It is Broken Blade's 4th most played champion of all time. 20 games. However, it's only the 2nd time that he's played it this year. And the first time he's playing it here at MSI. That'll be facing into Bin's Gwen. Caps will be running K'Sante into Yagao's Lissandra. Does this have any influence on what you think about the matchups? Obviously, because there was that flex potential.
Tough one for me. The main thing that I do like for G2 specifically is that the early power of Braum, K'Sante, and Gragas can win you a lot of skirmishes, right? And I think if the early skirmishes do go the way of G2, they are in a really, really good position, because outside of the Gwen, to me, the BLG comp does really fall apart if you're unable to get it going early. And it doesn't have to be like in the first 10 minutes, but about 15-20 minutes. If you're not taking down turrets and pushing tempo leads, the comp will really struggle.
It's also a case of, as you try and set up for these skirmishes, you're like, Yagao wants to be in the thick of things, but as he goes in, it's very easy for Yike to just throw a cask into the backline and just disrupt all of that follow-up, because BLG very much are a team that want to very quickly engage, all turn as one, all get in on top of it, and just having the amount of disruption that G2 does, hell, even Caps with the all-out as well, it's actually going to make these fights relatively difficult for BLG with the amount of peel that G2 have on their side.
Also want to highlight that between Braum and K'Sante, the amount of like plays that you can stop that in their tracks.
Like, stop that.
It's like, no, I don't want to. I'm not part of this. I'm not partaking. And it is something that
Oh, I clenched so much. That W, as well as the Q thrown out from Lucian and Nami respectively. Mickey steps away. I think ultimately, obviously, you want to get a little bit more of those combos together. Get that Tidecaller's Blessing on. That combo to Lucian's passive burns through people. I am nervous about what Hansama and Mickey are going to do, because they have been bullied by Elk and On all throughout the series.
And that's the thing that we have been, I think, is the big winning grace here for BLG, is the fact that they can control bot lane here.
Wow, look at this. Early level 1 trade. Good advantage to Hansama and Mickey, at least burning down On for now. Still got a number of consumables. Also no Cole for Elk, this time in a different matchup. Hansama, however, gets chunked out. He's down to 300 hit points. And level 2, the race is on.
Important to note, as observers were showing, Caps actually rotating towards the top side to still match Yagao. Obviously, you want to play the K'Sante into Lissandra, can negate a lot of the plays. So BLG is denied the play that they're looking for is Yike. Maybe an early play bot side here.
Oh, we're holding our breath. Observers toggle division. They don't know that he's there. The step forward forces the flash. The dash comes out from Elk. with the tight caller's blessing, turning the damage around, and now Alk gets tagged 2 shots and will avoid the stun. Okay, advantage to get both the heal and the flash away from On. Is that going to be enough to slow down the threat, slow down the pressure of that Lucian Nami into the Aphelios Brawl?
I definitely think it will. The fact that you can, as now Mickey, just flash onto the Nami and start to hit her down, no flash, no heal either, that could be the way to try and turn the bot lane, but you're starting to hit that very strong point as Elk, which is the level 3 for this bot lane. On has burned through a lot of mana, so maybe you can try and keep a lot of this bot lane in check, but you can even see if Elk is actually jumping onto Hans Sama when you're trying to go for On, it could be a disaster.
Look at Shun, stepping his way forward, will be inside the vision for G2. The Aqua Prison's available. Unbreakable comes up. Oh, the Heartbreaker forward. Mickey forced to flash away. Ticking, burning. Mickey somehow stays alive. I held my breath when Shun was charging that Blade of the Ruined King. And somehow Mickey escapes, but now no summoners whatsoever for BLG. Hans Sama holding on to his too. And so far, even in actual fact, a small CS advantage for Hans Sama.
The fact that you actually burn everything on Elk and he nearly dies as well means that you actually get to stick around here as Hans Sama, so he doesn't reset, we get to push the wave out, get a nicer back timing, and you can set up for something as well if Yike comes down.
All right, Caps trading there into Yagao, putting a lot of damage onto him. He needs the Glacial Path away. Hans Sama will be the target. Forced to cleanse already, down to 100, and with the minions helping out, lose just 1 summer spell.
Big win there for BLG. You can see the idea from Hans Sama was, I need to crash this wave, I have the Infernum, see what I can do, but not able to do so means that Elk and On will catch that massive wave and also be in a position to freeze this away from Hans Sama and Mickey.
Look at the rotation. Mickey is coming up as well, trying to take down Yagao here.
Yike already showing presence. Helped out in the bottom lane. Body slam. Pushed away. First blood to G2, to Caps and Yike. And they managed to take some plate damage as well.
And Yagao even flashing after the fact, right? Losing his flash, getting taken down. And this is one of the downsides that we see, right? When you rotate people up into a different lane just to try and get the best matchup possible. Yagao getting caught off guard there really messes, I think, with BLG, because now he has to teleport back, means that he can't make an impact on the map, set behind early, and slowing down this core of Viego and Lissandra is really, really big.
And especially the fact that you end up having control here as Broken Blade in mid lane, because you have that Jason to Gwen, you continuously push in. Yes, you are able to roam up, but this is something you can continue to do. Even look at where he is in the map at the moment, just setting up vision down in this river. They really want to make sure they can try and punish Elk and On when they have no summoner spells available, and at the moment Hans Sama at least should be able to get this wave just about crashed in.
Oh, that Unbreakable does so much, but obviously the Aqua Prison from On helping out. Now all of a sudden, Alk is pushing this wave back, I think, into the Lucian Namis. This is already a decent enough start for G2 considering how the previous games have gone. Yike, on the other hand, is absolutely showing up, forcing another summoner spell, been forced to flash away from that body slam. Yike has been to all 3 lanes and has generated advantage in every single one of them.
He needs to get back down into this bot lane, though. You can already see Shun hovering around here, making Hans Sama. This wave has been in such a terrible spot since that early play that Shun made, so now moving Broken Blade down as well. This is what we're talking about, trying to see if they can burn Elk and On down when they have no sums available.
TP to mid there as well from Yagao, or from Bin rather, so means that, they're going in aggressively here. Elk going back, Shun is on vision, so G2 feels confident here. Should be able to get in the wave as Shun walks up.
That relentless pursuit coming in clutch. Shun will be a target, gets caught out by that Winter's Bite, and we have a pause. A very dramatic pause. Oh, no. Hold up, London. I will not accept that. We do not know the cause of the pause. And yes, that is a tense freaking moment. Until we know the details, those boos are unacceptable. What I will say is this: G2 Esports have started this game well. Yike has been freaking everywhere to help out the squad. And G2 need that to continue to force us to a game 5.
Yeah, they really needed to get help on this bot lane. You can see exactly where the wave was pressed into. It was so difficult for Hansama and Mickey to actually get the wave crash. I think Elk and On were doing a really good job of just keeping it at bay and forcing the G2 bot lane to overextend. That's why Shun was spending so much time around this bot lane, trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible. But because Yike managed to get down there, because we talked about Broken Blade having that push in the mid lane, it was G2 finally able to kind of break it. I think it still actually might be frozen, to be perfectly honest. But still, we'll have to see exactly what happened here, because Shun getting caught out like that never should have happened.
No, and crucially, again, we already saw Yagao being put behind. If the Viego also starts to fall behind his opponent, they're able to pick up more early kills, and they're setting the pace of the game, I think it becomes incredibly hard for BLG to find a way back, because so much of that comp relies on being able to be the aggressor. And when you're playing from a deficit, you're not hitting your spikes as early, you're not being able to 100-0 people, you can't do nearly as much as you need to. And yeah, eventually Bin will come online, but that is a very distant future.
And by then, the Jace, the Aphelios are going to have a lot of impact. Okay, while we wait for details to come to us, I want to play a little game here. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you, at 8 minutes of each of our previous games, how far ahead do you think Elk was when it comes to CSD and goal difference? Just give me a rough estimate, because I've got the numbers in front of me, and they will shock you. Yes, I'm a tabloid now. Yeah, 8 minutes.
I mean, probably 15 CSD up and about 2k gold, I think it was.
Right. Now, this is the crazy thing, because that was my gut instinct too.
Yeah.
Ignoring the kills, because I've explicitly left K plus 8. In game 1, Elk was up 3 CS at 8 minutes. In game 3, he was down 2 CS. In game 2, yes, he was up 17 CS. But it was way closer. At 14 minutes, again for game 1 and game 3, there was only a 300 and a 500 gold difference between the bot laners. Now, the reason that I find that intriguing is, on my gut instinct and my memory, I'm like, man, Elk and On dumpstered and dominated G2's bot lane. Game 2, they obviously had a very significant lead. That was up to a 3,000 gold lead in game 2, right? So that was the one game that's had a huge influence. The other 2, game 1 was even. They was messy. They were trading kills back and forth. And in game 3, obviously, it was way more close. We've started on that similar trend. It's a much more close, it's much more even. So I just want to readjust some of those expectations. It's only that one game that's really, really been heavily BLG favored. Obviously, we do know the pause has come from BLG's side. I am waiting for more information. As soon as I get it, I will come back to you. But I mean, Lucian Nami, already level 4, level 5, hasn't popped off yet. I'm feeling hopeful here at Chronicler.
I personally, and this is of course, mostly from what I've seen in the LCK, we've actually seen pre-Electrocute, right, when the Electrocute Nami was still a thing, this was a lane that basically started bullying you level 2, right? The moment that you actually were able to dash in, go in, it has been mostly about pure lane dominance, but at least if we look at the teams, T1 is a great example that were able to execute this domestically. It wasn't necessarily about the laning phase. We actually saw Zeri Lulu win the matchup early on a lot. It became about what can you do in the mid game. And that's also, I think, why the first strike in particular gets picked. It's because the mid game, when you get your guild force and the mandates, proc that and just chunk someone to half allows you to do so much more on the map.
And a lot of the success we saw for this, especially when you start to rotate Lucian Nami into the mid lane, was when you had Wukong, Sejuani's, Maokai's as your junglers, right? Because oftentimes it's a case of, right, I'm going to go in with the culling, so as long as I've got this big AoE ultimate from the jungler that can CC someone down, I'm going to be in a great spot. You can burst someone out, then start to take the towers and start to roll. Diego isn't really that, so I'm curious to see how they want to try and use Alessandra to really bring them into the equation, because I feel like you need this like combo with Yagao to make that work.
Well, we do indeed. I will inform everyone that on my screen, the game has unpaused. The kill was secured by G2. With some luck, we'll be pulling this up on your screens in just a moment. Unfortunately, there is another pause. So I will keep feeding you information as and when I receive it. For now, I haven't got the exact reason for this, but we'll continue to talk a little bit about this game. G2 Esports, they've come out swinging. What I can tell you is this. Production has just informed me that On has reported having issues with his biscuits. Tournament officials are currently investigating the issue. And while they continue to do so, I'll give you that info. But I will say that as that pause came in, obviously that was the gank attempt onto Shun, which did result in the kill.
And as we were talking about the power of the Lucianami, right? As already mentioned a little bit, I think that Braum and Cassandra, as far as champion goes, to kind of negate what that duo wants to do, they are really far up. It is basically impossible to CC the Cassandra and really get a big chunk. And even if you do, the amount of tankiness that he has means that you lose a lot of that lethality, because there was a lot of Azirs and whatnot getting chunked out in the middle of the game. And then secondly, Braum is self-explanatory. The moment that the calling comes out, just throw up your Unbreakable, and it takes away so much of what makes the combo good. And if you then have a Vet Viego, maybe you can do something, but right now that's not the case.
It's not. All right, listen, what I will say is this. I want to take us away from the game for a moment or two, and I just want to say thank you to London. You guys have been incredible. Can I make some noise here, Copper Box, and in the arena? We don't have gameplay to talk about. We don't have champions to look at, so I think let's step away from this for a moment and let's talk stakes. London, I will tell you, the nerves are real here. The nerves are real because I mentioned this. Maybe some of you outside getting a drink beforehand. The last time that the LEC beat the LPL in a best of 5 was 2018. Fnatic beat EDG. Since then, we have not beaten an LPL team once. And that is a scary prospect. And for G2 to even try and turn that around, they need to win this game and then get to game 5.
Especially when they're only one game away as well from being knocked out of this tournament. We're going to see if they're going to be able to turn this around, because it is at least okay at G2 for the moment, but we're going to have to see if they can continue for the rest of the game.
We can. I have actually heard we're going to go to the analyst desk, and it's really good, because every time I say this guy just has a smug look in his face. It's like, it's even worse when you talk about LCK. So let's head to the analyst desk before Chronic starts to make us all mad at him.
Yeah, it is even worse, actually. I think we have a full screen graphic somewhere about it. But when I saw the information in our chat, I was like, Trevor, don't say it before they actually maybe win, because jinx it. I don't believe in jinxes, as you know. But hey, unfortunate situation here. And, you know, biscuits, someone might be like, oh, just the biscuits. But in the early game, it's like so important.
Yeah. I find popping on the microwave for like 5 or 10 seconds really just makes them much
Heat it right up.
Yeah, it's like you think they're old, but
It's
then they just feel fresh.
How about those brownies that you can make? They're like just like 3 ingredients, and you just put them in a cup, and then is that the same thing? Or
We should suggest that as well.
Yeah.
I've never baked a single thing in my life. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, good. Well, someone's cooking, though. It's Yike, because that's the information that we do have of how it's going in the game. And in terms of the early games, for G2, this is better because, well, they were just not good. But Yike is getting a certain amount of pressure off here, which I think was important or is crucial to the game, Emily. But it's all about team fights. So how do these two team fight?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is we talked about, okay, are they just going to go Aphelios? And that happened. Yeah. And then BLG's response was, we're going to go Lucian Nami, because now they just want to absolutely crush that bot lane, right? The other thing that I thought was super interesting is how they dealt with the mid and top matchups, because obviously G2 using the Cassante flex, despite the fact they are on blue side. And then, you know, BLG actually initiated the swap, which is kind of interesting for me in terms of what lanes they wanted. So
What year is it?
Yeah, I mean, and G2 follow it up with a really good play where their Caps is pushing in. He builds up a big wave. They rotate up. You have not only the Gragas coming, but the rest of the squad ready to rotate over for that early dive on the Lissandra as well. And yeah, G2 are setting this game up really nicely, especially with the almost pick on jungle.
Yeah, and Yike continues to play well throughout a lot of this series. He had a very good game 3, and he's been extremely successfully active in this game. So this was actually a gank from BLG. The fact that Guardian came off cooldown right there is rather fortunate for Mickey, but it does allow for some cross-mapping.
Again, though, you know, it doesn't matter who's on the other side. There's so much focus on that lane, Emily, and it's not going well.
yeah, I mean, here we're going to see the top dive coming out from Yike. I know they already pointed out on cast, but the most impressive thing is he was in all 3 lanes so early, and that's what's given G2 their advantage.
Yeah, and that was the rotation that we were talking about as well, up to the top side, off of Caps' minion wave, successfully getting that dive, then bouncing down to the bottom side and countering this possible jungle, play from Shun. And then getting him chased off. Biscuits or not?
Biscuits or not.
Shun is going to be in a tough spot.
We'll see indeed. But the big question is, because this is the trend we've seen now in a couple of games, and last game it was the case of you got the advantage, but did you push it further fast enough in order to make sure that this game is completely closed? What we've learned it's never completely closed. Yeah. So since G2 are against match point, chat, what is the best plan for them going forward?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since we paused exactly the game state that we were at, but I do think getting, not to sound redundant, as much gold as they can out of Hans Sama is important for a number of reasons. Because if they're not able to get consistent push on the Lucian, it's going to be a big problem. Because even if Lucian's a little bit behind right now, the Lucian Nami from BLG's side, once they get Imperial Mandate and Gale Force, can still take over mid lane pretty much whenever they want, unless there's a substantial lead or substantial fog of war control from the side of G2.
We do have an update that tournament officials have confirmed the bug that affected BLG's On's ability to use his biscuits. Because this had a material impact on the game, they will be initiating a chrono break and rolling the game back to 6:42 in game. And I just asked for clarification because I want to know exactly when that was, because I don't know.
I'm going to tell you.
You're going to tell me. Tell me.
I can't tell you.
He's rewinding.
Come on, Jet.
Love it.
I'm going as fast as I can.
Okay. Anyways, because of course it's a
6:42.
6:42.
Okay, I'm getting there. All right, so
We're going to get all the big cameras on the Jet's phone.
Okay, so literally
where's the,
6:42.
Cam, but for
Yeah,
I don't understand how they can do 6:42 because they paused at 6:43. So that's like a second before that dude is about to die.
Oh. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Anyways,
the death will probably
Because
still
normally
happen,
they pause. They were on my phone. Okay, hold on. So this is 6:43. Why are we doing this? I can zoom in. It says paused. Anyway.
they don't like us probably speculating
So
about
normally
these things,
the
right?
rules. Well, what else are we going to do?
Like, oh, crowd. Yeah,
It's
you're
clearly
right.
speculation. I'm not a rules official.
You're right.
But normally the rules are to go back to a dead ball state.
Yeah.
Which can also disadvantage a lot of teams a lot of times, because you could be like middle of a team fight that is going wrong when a chrono break happens, but by the rules of the chrono break, you don't go right before the bug happens, you go before the action happens. So,
But perhaps the biscuits was not working early. I'm not going to speculate,
well,
actually.
exactly.
I'm not
So
going to do it.
6:42 is probably when it happened, but
Yeah.
I do wonder if they're going to roll it back to like 6:35 or something. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see indeed. But things that are standing and they're not getting rolled back is the fact that the bot lanes have been so incredibly important, and now we get a new twist on it. So, Kobe, are you happier with what you see now that the Aphelios is on the one side and the Solution Nami on the others going into this mid game?
Yeah, I mean, we got what we were talking about. I mean, BLG, they decided to double ban the two OPs, the Maokai and the Annie, and that's what caused this cascade, where then Lulu's banned and G2 decides to take away the Aphelios. I will say, I was pretty scared, though, because watching Elk with the Lucian Nami combination last time versus Cloud9, he got a lot of damage out. He is very willing to play on the edge and play very aggressively with his champion and constantly looks for return damage. We even saw this in a couple instances in this game already where Yike is ganking, and in the 3v2 he's stepping back up to try and squeeze some damage out. So I am a little bit trepidatious.
One thing that's interesting to me is you see similar KDAs coming through, but the kill participation is really interesting, despite the fact that obviously you also see that Elk has higher damage numbers. That's kind of due to the Aphelios. But the fact that BLG are putting other champions like the Jax, like in this case the Gwen on this pick, to be doing damage for them in teamfights as well. Like obviously it's still all about the hyper carry, but in setting up that CC to protect them, there's also how much damage you're going to be putting out during that. So in this series, even though obviously Lucian Nami is going to fall off to the Aphelios. Elk plays Lucian super, super well, and I'm more looking at what they're going to do in their mid game and how they're going to rotate him around the map to take down turrets and kind of open up the map. I'm also super curious about the Gwen in the top lane and how that's going to work.
In the mid lane.
In the mid, yeah.
Yeah, and
we swapped.
And the Lucian doesn't follow for a long time.
Oh.
I will say the Braum is really good for counter engage into the Nami as well, though. So we'll see how good this Braum play can be, because that can really solidify your team fights.
Well, and on their side, they have the Jace too, right? So if you can set it up that Jace is just constantly like softening them with poke, that'll be really crucial for G2.
Do you still have those stats that you were going to pull about the best of fives?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have them. So maybe we can pull them up. It's not a happy stat for you.
It's just really tense.
It's almost ready, apparently.
And I think it's why Trevor was really tense casting. I feel like it's why there's a lot of tenseness in this room. The history of LEC versus LPL is not good.
No, it's not. I'm actually going to scroll up so I see it.
Yeah, the last time
That's
that
why
they won a best
was
of 5 was 2018 Fnatic during Worlds against EDG. But then the overall record is much worse. And what's weird about this series is like it's very clear that G2 has a very real chance, right? it really felt like they were going to go up 2-1 in the last game. And to me, I'm thinking if they go up 2-1 with the manner in which they won those 2 games, they would take game 4. And even with the way game 3 ended, they bounced back to a very good start in game 4. So I know they're experienced, and people I think are trying to kind of hold together the momentum and the hope here, because it could break at any moment, right? Like one big Lucian Nami team fight, Lucian gets 3 or 4 kills. That could be it for the LEC at this entire midseason invitational. So
yeah, I think it's almost ready. But basically, the TLDR of things is that the LEC is. Can you scroll down? What are you doing?
I said 1-18.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
what I
1-18 in best of 5s versus LCK, LPL since Worlds. Wait.
Since Worlds 2021.
Wait, that's incredible.
Well, that's got to be a game score.
That's got to be a game score. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even then, it's actually insane. And it
Was
just
the one
paints
win
the
just
picture.
now?
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah. Oh, no, excluding today.
Here, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, excluding today. Anyways, game score, yes. I love how they're just updating us, and we're still waiting for the graphic. But it's bad, and I think it just shows how, in general, it has been so incredibly hard for EU and NA teams, of course, but in this case, the LEC teams, to upset those regions, LCK and LPL specifically, for different reasons in a best of 5. Because we see that almost all of the victories come from the best of ones at Worlds, right? When you can have that toss-up, let's say, but when it comes to outplaying them 5 games in a row, 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, that's where it becomes very, very difficult.
And this series, is definitely doable, as you're saying, for G2. We looked at the last game. The last game was so incredibly close, just coming down to the pick on the carry at the very end.
Yeah, here is that graphic we were talking about. 0-3 in 2021 Worlds, 2022 MSI, 0-3. That one game did come from G2. So now the second game coming from G2 as well. But to get back to the discussion we were just having, the pressure that is on G2 to even win here, but also the task that they have to do well at MSI. And I think this is going to be true for any Western team with how dominant the LPL and LCK have been, unless you need to update really quickly.
I do have an update.
My point is not important. So
I think,
go for it.
yeah, I
Fresh
think
biscuits?
in a way, the Chrono Break did not resolve the issue. Tournament officials are trying one final fix, but if they are unable to resolve the issue, the teams will play through starting at 6:53. So that would be after On already dies.
Yeah, well, that would be like right as he's getting body slammed.
Yeah.
So that's good news for Europe. Bad news for the LPL.
I hate being like, I would hate to be joyous when it's about something that can't be resolved. Of course,
I agree,
yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
There's a lot of games where the refs decide things and fans love it or hate it.
That's
so,
true.
Like, it's just the game. It's
But
just
we're
what
not
happens.
fans. We don't have any of those feelings. Do you?
Honestly, I want to see the West do well.
Okay.
Like, I really
I'm
do.
a
At
robot
this
for
point-
one. I don't know about you, but I'm for sure a robot.
At this point, we have something in parentheses. The original pause was at 6:40. However, 6:53 is the time where the teams tested off air if the issue was resolved.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Anyway, people on the computers can go back to the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
My phone's running out of batteries.
Yeah.
I'll get back to the point that I had before.
Go.
This new MSI format is a blessing and a curse. Because I feel like the previous MSI format, if you thought about the path for G2 or even 2016 CLG to have what they would consider a success at an international event, it was have a pretty good best of 1 group stage, top 4 of 6, right? Where only one Korean and Chinese
It's
team
actually
existed.
really hard to fail.
Well, believe me, not that hard.
I know.
TSM made it look really hard. And then once you get to the best of 5 stage, you have to have that one big moment, right? For G2 in their MSI championship, they took down T1 and then they beat the NA team TL in the finals. But now, if we think about where G2 sits, they have to win the next 2 games here against BLG. They have to win 3 of 5 against C9, obviously, or Gen 3.
Okay.
Then they'll have to beat JDG and T1. In all successive best of 5s, they're still 10 wins away from an MSI championship. It is so much
What's
more
the
daunting.
slogan? What's the slogan of MSI?
Defy
Yeah.
expectation. Anyway.
You're going to have to do it a lot. But it's a great point, and I think that is where, you know, a lot of people have been frustrated with the LEC and the LCS teams in general. But on the other hand, it just makes the class of the teams, like a JDG, a T1, I'm going to also include Gen G in that conversation for now. In all of this is not good. They're not on stage anymore.
Bathroom break.
Yeah, bathroom break, which is important, but it's true. And I think if we look at the side of BLG as well, Emily, we set it up before, but they are still on match point. And when it comes down to those team fights, they have been very crisp. They have been very able to push those games home. And for them, it's the same hard road. But do you think if they close this out cleanly, if it is in this one, or maybe it's in the 5th one, how much growth potential do you think they can still have in this tournament?
I mean, yeah, BLG are a really interesting team because, like I said, to go back to the first time they faced JDG, they actually almost won that series, which is why, like, every time they throw in game, I'm like, yeah, okay, like, we've seen a lot of this, even in their playoff run. They're not a team that plays very cleanly. But I do think throughout their run, you could see their team fighting and coordination improve. They still don't always make the best decisions, I think, but when it comes to a lot of those team fight setups, that's where they have grown as a team. And I feel like you can see that here at MSI as well.
Yes, you can. Players are allowed to go to the bathroom, but we will resume after. This is just a couple of minutes away. This fan has been here for many years, always with the cowbell usually, but now it's with the, what do you call that, those thingies?
Thunder sticks.
Thunder sticks.
I heard at least one of the cowbells was confiscated by security, which
and then
is very
given back.
sad.
And then given back.
And then returned.
But now I don't see it.
But back to BLG though, I completely agree, and I feel like the growth is what you want to focus on with this team, because in regular season in LPL, you know, the expectations for this team were not that high, and they've been able to overreach and surprise people and defy those expectations.
Defy counter 3. Amazing. There we see Romain, who, as always, is dressed the part, and what I can only assume is a stressed group backstage for both sides because the pressure is so immensely high. Last LEC representative in the tournament, and LPL teams always have it incredibly difficult in their domestic audience in terms of what they show on the international stage, thanks to their pedigree.
Yeah, and Dylan Falco right there looked pretty relaxed. I feel like he's probably already done a lot of the Game 5 draft prepping. That is one thing about, like, coaches watching backstage in League of Legends, you're so damn powerless.
Yeah.
Like, because you can't call plays, you can't call timeouts. You're pretty much just like, well, I hope
just
the
let go.
champions work. Especially if this goes to Game 5. Like, when you walk off stage, you're like, well, time to just turn my brain off because they're too stressed.
When you were a coach, though, would you have wanted the ability to call plays? Like, how would that happen? Like, because I think that's so much on the players, like, in the game.
Oh, I would love a timeout. Because occasionally during scrims you can call timeouts. It kind of pisses off the other team, but you just say it's a bug or something. Just to, like, 1 or 2 minutes, like, remind people what the focus is, because you can totally lose focus within a game. But you obviously can't do that in games like this.
Yes.
I mean, if it's paused.
I mean,
only.
Refocus.
No communication from the coaches to the team, but the teams themselves and the veteran leadership, maybe from someone like Caps, could have a big influence.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's been brought up a lot of times. If you could have someone, a 6th person, talking in real time to the teams, but it would completely
That's totally different.
It would completely change.
And it is a huge discussion that we're not going to embark on right now because we're getting back into the game. Quick shot, finally.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, London. We are back in game. It's 7 minutes on the clock. If you have just joined us, thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with us. I will say as well, on behalf of me personally, I appreciate that boo when the pause came in was because there was a pause. We're all heated. We want the action to continue. Nobody in London would be booing BLG, right? Right? No, I'm not asking for it, you fools. I'm not asking for it. We're here to cheer and support to play good League of Legends. Importantly, the kill that was secured was not removed. And while we do not have details right now, I want to emphasize, I want to make it clear. Players should and must always pause if they think a bug happens or something goes wrong. Is exactly what happened, and we're now back into the game. Right, let's take stock of this. Chronicler, it is still 2 kills to 0. 1 for Caps, 1 for Hans Sama, and it's still a small gold lead in favor of G2.
And we are going to have to see BLG actually be able to fight back in some of these skirmishes. This have been mostly individual picks, combined with a nice play on the top side of the map. But this first Herald fight, pivotal for BLG.
see if they're going to be able to achieve much here. G2 already moving in. Mickey's there.
Well, there's the engager. Gao goes with a glacial path forward. Ring of Frost goes down. Mickey's the first to fall. Kill secured by Shun's Viego. The Herald down to 1,400 hit points. Ons arrive to the fray. The ebb, the flow, the Aqua Prison, and BLG, they pick up the skirmish.
Well, thank you. Very clear answer. BLG was aware of the fact that they needed to win that skirmish, and they did decisively. Shigao does get caught.
He does get caught. Caps goes all out. The Prison throws him in the air, and Yagao escapes with his life. Caps unable to secure that kill, and BLG, they get the 500 gold lead.
Still, though, nicely done by Caps, because that is a flash, a heal gone from On, and also a flash from Yagao, so that helps a little bit with making you feel less bad about what just happened, because BLG got the kills on Viego that they so desperately need, and immediately throws down the Herald mid.
All right, very quickly, as the engage now goes forward, Elk will be dropped. Hansama and Mickey find that kill. I think I have the briefest of moments. I do want to just have one final update on this. We've got the ruling. At around 6 minutes 40, BLG paused, reporting a potential bug impacting On's ability to utilize his biscuits. League officials attempted to resolve the bug through multiple avenues, including the chrono break. The issue is not resolved, but League officials have determined that we will play on. And I do think it is crucial from my perspective. I want to empathize with the players, but I don't think biscuits have had a tangible impact in what that bottom lane has happened and how things have played out.
Exactly. Shun had overextended, he got caught. Now Elk overextends that bot lane in the 2v1. He ends up going down. Caps, though, doesn't have control over mid. BLG moving down with Bin. They want to try and contest here.
We want to go back to what happened in the previous skirmish. Because of the Elk play bot side, we didn't get to see a replay of it. The initial few seconds are the most important. If BLG get a kill, you are not going to win the fight, right? Especially this early on, you need to make sure that you deny the resets and that neither Yagao nor Shun is able to set up, because otherwise, even with G2 having Mickey there, you're not going to be able to take it out.
No, and of course, in terms of Mickey and Hansama, this time around, 2 kills up. It's a gold advantage to Hansama on the Aphelios. Those early levels, those early trades, and that early gank from Yike working out. Shun appreciating that and instantly jumping onto Mickey. The Unbreakable buys so much time. Maybe Quickshot does cast to curse that bottom lane. Heartbreak forward. Again, Moonlight Vigil's on cooldown. Cleanse used. Flash needed, yep. Hansama continues to run for his life and holds on to that flash. While all that pressure was happening in the middle lane, Broken Blade on that Jace, reminder that he lane swapped from earlier on, is continuing to push forward and now will be met by Bin.
You're starting to get control over this bottom side, though, as you see Elk with those turret plates going to get his answer back for a lot of what Hansama picked up in the early stages. Still Broken Blade, getting pushing mid, getting shoved, Caps on this top side. It's a lot more about the solo laners here for G2. How much can they do as Caps?
Oh, nicely done, managing to escape. Frozen Prison was locked down, and I think the footwork there helping him get to safety. Manages to stay alive as the wave was cleared out. Caps looking pretty comfortable on this Consante and applying pressure to BLG.
Importantly as well, as long as Shun isn't there, a lot of the effective gold from BLG isn't there, right? A lot of the power. If, with all 3 kills being on this Cassante, picked up a very early Divine Thunderer as well, G2 still is very much in a position where they can pick fights on the rest of the map. The 2v2 from Aphelios and Braum, as we have already seen, very, very strong. And I am very happy to see G2 keep the pressure here on BLG, because even though BLG won that one skirmish, you know, threw down a Herald, picked up a Drake, it's not enough. They need to, in my opinion, snowball more if they really want to take control of the game.
And of course, will they be able to do it? That's the question. We're 3 minutes from that Drake, 2 minutes from the next Herald. Caps and Yagao have been trading in that top lane. Keeping an eye on the CS numbers as well, still pretty even as far as those solo laners are concerned, despite the movements. You can see there once again, Bin may be able to catch out. No, Caps will be able to complete it. That means Broken Blade on that Jace continues to pressure forward. Teleport into this bottom lane.
Yeah, they want to try and make a play happen.
Yikes there too, Yikes there too, Dagda.
I don't know if they can get in here, though. This is the thing. They need to try and crash the wave. Shun going to try and match Yike off the side. The TP from Broken Blade as well.
TP, so he's going top. Broken Blade's going to be catching Bin. There's a 3 versus 3 for now, 4 versus 4 potential. The Dragon is up in only 2 minutes time and they're fighting for Scuttle Crab. G2 Esports, they went fishing for an opportunity. They were unable to find one.
They really wanted to try and get the dive onto Elk and On and just massively put the spot lane behind, but they don't get the chance. The Mickey stepping up does need to back away. There's a lot of damage that can come out from On and Elk, but still G2, you can see finally in these games, they're the ones that are trying to be more proactive in the early stages.
Importantly there as well is that with Caps using the TP, so Yagao switching to the heal, trying to get to the play, as a result wasn't really able to get any lead in mid. So even though the teleport was invested, didn't end up costing too much in terms of CS or presence on the map.
Well, listen, this game is definitely as close as it can be. In contrast to many of the previous games, Hansama and Mickey stealing away that Aphelios. The Braum is doing a lot of work. But you have to highlight the back timers. Mythic's already picked up here. Alk has got himself that Gale Force. Sitting on those free-ass boots. In comparison, Berserker Screeve's Gale Force just picked up a couple seconds ago. So as far as combat power is concerned, a lot of benefits in favor of BLG, and it looks like they might be moving around. There's a lot of lane reassignments this game.
I mean, they're looking at Rift Herald, right? You just picked up the strongest point for Elk and On, and the BLG want to make sure they can slam that home. Moving towards Broken Blade in this top side.
Plays the target. Will be caught inside the tomb. Bin continues to chase, fires out the needlework. One last frost shot will secure it. BLG run him down. Broken Blade took a long time to be killed, but that opens up the possibility of this bottom tower. This is a trade of power across the map.
Yeah, with a Broken Blade actually wasting a decent amount of time and BLG needing a little bit more time to actually take him down, Caps is able to get down substantial damage to this turret as long as Yagao arrives in time to make sure that it stays alive. Still not too bad, but if Caps is able to get first turret blood before BLG can use the Herald to crack open the map, that's a really big win for them.
He might be able to do so as well. Yagao just going to be here as the tower falls, so you're not going to be able to get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he shouldn't take this and immediately try and move into the mid lane to get that middle turret down, make things a little bit easier, open up a long lane for Elk and On to start chasing members down in this mid lane.
With that tower being secured now, may have even more opportunities to push into BLG jungle. The dragon is spawning. BLG 3 members stacking towards the middle lane. Rift Herald instantly dropped again. That's both of them pretty quickly thrown down and will allow the reposition. Caps is already in the river. Broken Blade used that teleport just a little bit ago. Red-White has just timed out before the dragon fight. Yike stepping forward, level 9, goes all out, thrown, Heartbreaker away, Shun stays alive, but it's Elk that finds Hansama. G2 Esports are so split up that Elk is able to cull him down. Now Caps in and amongst the fray. The explosive cast comes up, but there's no damage, there's no follow-up, there's no G2 to finish the fight.
You can't fight on these spikes. All BLG want to do at this point in the game is fight you. Try and get a kill, try and start a skirmish. And G2 is saying, yeah, sure, throw everything onto Shun. He's able to flash an ultimate out. And Elk showcasing the lethality of this Lucianami.
Oh, so much damage. Unbreakable's buying time. Bin, however, is not done. Mercurial Hammer to the skies. Drops right down, but Broken Blade's the next target. We're playing on the Infernal Rift, and Hansama's been able to respawn, trying to find a target, but BLG, in the blink of an eye, find a 3,000 gold lead.
And now BLG is up 2 Drakes, while having the chance for an Infernal Soul, which obviously, with the Gwen, with the Lucian you're looking for, and again, everything here starts off with them trying, and if they actually kill Shun, then they might have been fine. But, like, even if they do, with Elk getting Hansama there, like, you're not going to win the fight. You need that damage. And dying up with Flash and Cleanse shouldn't happen.
Not in a million years. I mean, Gale Force is into a really good ultimate coming through from On as well. Like, you basically are caught between a rock and a hard place. You got the wave one direction, you got a Culling coming the other way. You were never going to win out on that. And G2, they take a fight where BLG are happy to have them that split up. And now, as you say, with Dragon in tow, plus this one as well, like, there's no way you're going to get that steal, but they still attempted, and now it's just another kill going over to Bin, who has that Riftmaker now completed.
Yeah, but look at Elk's itemization deck. They're straight after that. Rapid fire cannon already. But I think the Culling and the Gale Force, just the fact that, like, the members of G2 split up, Elk was able to single out Hansama. This is the period of the game where this Viego, Lissandra, Lucian are going to be way more impactful. G2 have to play a little careful. If they get to the 3-4 items, then all of a sudden the scaling can play to their benefit.
It goes back to the conversation we keep having, which is actually utilizing the tools that you have, right? And that's partially on Hans, that's partially on the rest of his team. But with Cassante and a Braum, your Aphelios should never die.
like that, right? So Illusion is taken down.
Oh, I mean, look at this. Hans Summer's the target. The culling this time round is blocked by the Unbreakable. The tidal wave, however, sends Hans in the air. The needles are fired, waiting for the snip, snip, snip. Ben can't find him, but the Heartbreaker does. Instant reply, though, as Yike throws up the explosive casket to 1 for 2, and BLG maintain control.
But G2 are taking these fights when BLG have the numbers advantage. Caps is pushing in the bot lane, so BLG feel comfortable to take it. And Yura Casante, yes, he got demolished, but you're not really going to get much damage onto these sideline turrets. And Hans Sama is the one that's footing the bill for all this.
The early laning phase is irrelevant, because once Elk and On have started to move around the map, 008, better than James Bond for that Nami, and 312, the moment that Gale Force was activated, Elk has found culling after culling and has made Hans Sama irrelevant in these fights.
And it's not impossible for G2 to come back, particularly given how we've seen some of the games play out. But what it does mean, you are now reliant on BLG to mess up, because with the amount of aggressive power that they have, plus a 2 Drake lead, getting back is going to be so hard.
And look at the timing on these ultimates from James On. Every single time he's catching Hans Sama with it, and Mickey is also putting up this barrier earlier to try and block the culling. So they're kind of using this as a 1-2 punch to constantly keep G2 in check.
Beautiful play from BLG. I mean, you can feel the pressure, you can feel the tension from Hans Sama. He and the rest of G2, they are behind, but they are not yet eliminated, as we've seen so many times.
Hey,
and
15 seconds to Baron.
15 seconds to Baron. They wouldn't rush it this quick, would they? More importantly for me,
What?
a minute and a half until Inferno.
I actually wouldn't mind if they started, as long as they peel off. If they try to actually take the objective, that would not be what you want to do. I personally say if they...
Baron's up, Chronicler. The chance is there.
Okay, but if they peel off and fight them, like G2 are... That's not good, okay? They need to actually commit fully.
Let's see if they do. BLG right now, happy and content to catch the waves. Teleport available for Bin, Broken Blade and Caps as well. Summoners, the Unsealed Spellbook rather. Here we go, currently sitting on Flash Cleanse. And we're a minute away from Dragon. It'll be Dragon number 3 here in favor of BLG. But for G2 Esports, push the middle wave, try to apply some pressure on the tower, and they're peeling towards Baron to get some vision set up.
Yao on his back just finished the Zhonya stopwatch, so we'll have that available for the up-and-coming fight. Flash is available across the board as well here for BLG. No flash for Hans, and he needs to stay alive if they want to actually be able to take down BLG and fight for this Dragon.
Oh, actually, Mickey might get caught here. Elk starting to push forward. Does have to slow, but didn't want to go overly aggressive without that vision in the top side. But as long as you're able to get constant control like this for BLG through mid lane and just start to spread that vision out, it becomes harder and harder for G2 to really get into a spot where they can threaten anything. You see they're trying to push sides and maybe move in, but BLG, they have firm control over this Dragon area now. And I mean, where the hell are G2?
Well, that's the question. G2 currently recalling Broken Blade and Yike towards the top quadrant. Looking not to contest this Dragon. This is the 3rd of the game in favor of BLG. Also, itemization. You're talking 2 items for Yagao, for Alk, and only still getting towards that 2nd for Caps and Hans Sama. G2 are behind the curve, and that's before you factor in the champion power and their current levels.
Yeah, I do think that BLG, with that back from On, thought that G2 maybe was still contested. G2 actually had backed off, so they had a window, but they didn't know. Gonna look towards that 5v5. Bin isn't here yet, but does have TP.
All right, Caps takes a little bit of damage there from Alk, but that Tide Caller's blessing. Bin's making his way from the middle lane. Winter's Bite won't find a target. The Fissure is still up. The Moonlight Vigil too. Unbreakable. That's a big cooldown. Red, white, Hans Summer's the target in this fight. Tidal Wave will not send him up, but the re-engage is good. Aqua Crescent buys some time, and Hans Summer simply cannot stay around long enough. BLG have got 1, have got 2. They are looking for the 3rd, and they're not done yet. The Dragon was ignored and G2 were obliterated.
BLG are too good at getting onto Hans Sama. They blow the early cleanse, and from that point forward, Yago still manages to get in to help Elk finish him off. Now, with Baron in their sights, BLG want to make sure that they are advancing forward.
And this time around, G2 not really in a position. Yai can go for maybe a miracle steal. But look, Yagao marking him, but making sure that he can't get close.
No ultimate, no flash, no body slam, no Baron left to play around. BLG have just accelerated this game to a point that may not be possible for G2 to come back. They still have scaling, they still have possibilities, but man, they are going to be relying on BLG being a little overeager, a little out of position. And the thing is, it is still possible, but it's so difficult for them now.
Particularly because this is a Lucian, right? It's not the Aphelios where one misstep is the difference between life and death. Lucian has so much mobility innate in his kit, and especially when combined with a Nami, actually taking down Elk, who is monstrously fed, is an almost impossible task.
Ben is on the top side of the map, though, so G2, considering maybe we can make something happen, Yike maybe even look for the steel caps, though, taking a ton of damage in the mid lane. Dragon below half HP.
I mean, third item completed already. That's the Infinity Edge. Teleport being channeled here from Bin. That will at least get one of those cooldowns available. Caps the next target of Elk. 3 items completed. 4, 1, and 4. 0, 0, 11. That Nami behind him involved in 11 of the 13 kills. BLG now, once again, continuing the pressure. Captures the target. He's caught out. He's rooted in place. Blade of the Rune King comes out and Elk is unstoppable. Caps just gets punished for recalling around the corner.
He should never have been there. You know the BLG want to try and use this Baron buff to take towers, and he just gets completely caught out. Even when you look at the bottom side, Broken Blade and Yike were there. No one was here to defend that, so Caps knew he was going to be out on his own, and they were already gifting the tower. That quicker reset was going to give him nothing.
Additionally, Bin has gone for the Nashers, right? So no one in the game can deal with this Gwen in a 1v1. So getting the TP, really, it's a small victory, but as long as Bin can match, the rest of the team is winning so insanely hard because they need to send multiple people just to deal with him.
And this is why BLG have been so capable of playing around this Lucian Nami, even just domestically as well. They've been so good at making sure they can play for these early skirmishes, get the early towers, start to put the pressure down. Even though they weren't actually that far ahead coming out of the laning phase, it was just the fact that they were able to find these skirmishes so consistently, play around their vision, look for early dragons, and now it's G2 who's paying for those mistakes.
And this is a heartbreaking turn of events because the first 7 minutes of this game looked good. Yike was everywhere, and that Lucian Nami didn't get a chance to be unlocked. The problem is the following 17 minutes have been all BLG. They've moved around the map more effectively. They've utilized that Lucian way more effectively. And because of the power spike of their composition, G2 are now 7,000 gold down. They are down 3,500 gold to this Red Bull Baron power play. And while they still have their base to fall back to, the opportunities to claw back this 8,000 gold deficit are becoming slimmer and slimmer.
And the kicker, in 3 minutes, it's Infernal Soul, right? And as if there isn't enough global potential, BLG's composition, I would say on an even state, relies on getting a pick. They already have more than enough gold for that, but the moment that Infernal Soul comes through, a single dash forward from Elk combined with a proc from On and a W is going to chunk out everyone on G2.
And we've already seen it happen to Caps, who in theory is a tanky member on this team. Yeah, so it's not going to get any better. And BLG, they are well aware of that. Bin now taking bot lane turret. He's opted in towards the Nashor's Tooth, so definitely something that can do a lot of damage when left alone with these towers. So you've got Yaga who's pushing in the top lane. He'll have his TP up in just a few moments for that Dragon. And G2, they're trying to group as this 3 to 4 man unit, see if they can maybe pick people off. Even Broken Blade and Yike trying to play towards one side, but BLG just aren't giving them that opportunity to come back into it. They're aware of what happened the last time G2 got that moment against Elk.
And listen, it is going to be a big fight. G2 Esports with one potential last shot remaining. Elk is just dominating. 6, 1, and 14, 3.5 items completed. Caps will be the next target. Gets caught in place by that Ring of Frost, by the Glacial Tomb as well. He goes all out, buys enough time for Yike to arrive. The tidal wave will hold him in place for Elk to arrive, and now's the next target. Keep in mind, 130 for Soul, 140 for Baron. While that's going on, Ben does not give a damn. He's opening up the inhibitors. The Nexus turret, the inhibitor turret has fallen already.
And that's what I was saying with the Nashor's Tooth. Gwen does so much damage to these structures. The extra attack speed is absolutely nuts. And BLG, they're drawing G2 everywhere and taking everything. BLG want to make sure that they are advancing forward and going up against the winner of Gen G and Cloud9.
It is a 10,000 gold lead. And Bilibili Gaming on the verge of eliminating G2 Esports, last of the LEC squads. Look at this from Elk. Oh, the ward as well. Great vision toggle from the observers. Great vision toggle from the observers.
He feels safe, right? Because there's a control ward in the brush. And then there, it times out, but in time for Elk to take it down.
Beautiful stuff from Elk, though. I mean, Yes, didn't have, or had the vision initially, but did lose it halfway through. Still able to get the core of those shots off and get the kill there. Now BLG, 30 seconds until Dragon. They already have the reset. They're already controlling so much of this river area now.
Dagda, how do they do it? Dagda, how did G2 try to find this win? Need to get Elk. Follow Elk, level 14, advantage over Hansama. 4 items completed. He's got that LDR into a BT, a Gale Force, and the BF Sword. This is an uphill battle if ever I've seen one. There's even a stopwatch next to those free-ass boots for Elk. He's a 2-level advantage. Chronicler, it's going to be so hard, but it's the only way that G2 can buy some time.
Oh, but even if you kill Elk, Bin is level 16 Gwen, monster fed as well. They need a miracle here.
Let's see what they can do. Bin steps forward, snippety snip snip. Shun's gonna back away with that ultimate thing, engage forward. Hansama's the target for now. Yike has been able to push Elk away, but Elk stays alive. That stopwatch is buying time. Caps looks for him and finds him, but at what cost? 3 members of G2 are down. It's all up to Broken Blade, and it's not gonna be enough. The ace for BLG.
And the mission is accomplished, but at what cost? Yes, Elk goes down eventually, but the stopwatch to cleanse by so much time. And Bin says, hey, I'm here as well, and completely decimates the backline of G2.
BLG handled the laning pressure from Yike, and the challenge from G2 Esports, and BLG will eliminate G2 from MSI. BLG advanced to the next stage in their lower bracket run towards finals.
BLG will take down the LEC's last hope, and in such dramatic fashion as well. On and Elk may not have got the lead that they were expecting in the laning phase, but by God, when they came into those mid-game skirmishes, they make it known that they were still as strong, even with the Aphelios taken away from them.
Also saw the level of comfort. Yagao and Shun, particularly in that final game, looking so much more in sync, actually working together very, very well.
London, put your hands together for BLG, as they have been the better team all day long. They have had G2's number. G2 also had the opportunity to win those games, but unfortunately they just got bullied, beaten up, I think at an individual level, outshone by their opponents, and those skirmishes just going the way of BLG in many of those games.
I think especially in that bot lane, right? I think Elk and On just had the number of Hansama and Mickey the entire way through, but London gave a shout out to G2 as they take the stage for the last time.
A heartbreaking end to the tournament for G2 Esports. An even more difficult pill to swallow, because you could see that the potential was there for them to not only win the games, to win the series. They should have had the series score going into this one. You know, throwing that game, throwing the lead. That's how it feels, especially to a European caster.
Yeah, it really is so close yet so far, right? You can even argue that if you just don't get any moment, it doesn't feel as bad, because now you're being able to win a skirmish left or right, you're able to get a laning lead here or there, but when it comes to the map play, and particularly the team fights, it just feels like you get one mistake every single game, whereas a lot of the LPL, the LCK teams are just so much better at turtling down, waiting for the one opportunity, waiting for the one error, and then striking, and then straight up winning the game of that.
And I will say thank you to London. That game 4 was dramatic. The pause, the heartbreak, the challenges around it. Ultimately, the LG came out and they used that Lucian Nami to fantastic effect. It's something that the LEC teams have not been able to demonstrate or to really execute well, and it was the downfall in the final game here for G2.
And that's the thing, I think we're kind of seeing a lot, and a lot of the conversation has been how these AD carries are protected as you go into this, and in these fights, we're seeing that Elk is getting significantly more peel, he's dealing significantly more damage, as you can see on your screen from the post-game breakdown, but even just the fact that how they set up for these moments, like Elk getting access to Hansama in that first skirmish in River,
yes,
getting them down with the culling, like these are small errors that are just being exploited so quickly by these Eastern teams.
And if I can really draw onto it, I know Dagda and Chronicler, you did a great job of highlighting how well BLG played around Elk, how they created space for him and also protected him. And we saw specifically that Lucian, well, I can see it so vividly in my head, all the G2 members diving for Shun, not for Elk. And then because of them diving, Hans Sommer stood there into a culling like, bruh, what am I meant to do? And it's one of those things where you see enough of those fights play out, it really was like visualized or demonstrated incredibly well in that last shot.
Just makes it so hard because you feel like you got to do something as well, right? Because if you don't try to take agency, if you don't try to make proactive plays, you're also going to be in trouble as, what do you even say?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, look at this,
like that.
Broken Blade sitting down. Tough end to the tournament, especially for the player. In my eyes, was the most impressive out of G2, the most consistent. I think close second was Yike.
Yeah, I think Yike was absolutely incredible. And I mean, the first time on an international stage, to see him stepping up as well as he did, I think he deserves a ton of praise for G2 throughout this.
And I will say this, obviously we're reacting to the shots that we are getting here live in venue. Kudos to everyone for coming by and watching. I do want to turn our attention to BLG though, because they are the victorious squads today. I think a lot of people anticipated BLG winning based on the level that we have seen from the LEC squads, and they now will advance. It argues the unenviable task of playing Cloud9 or GG. That is going to be an uphill battle all the way to a potential finals run.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they do actually manage to get there, because I think BLG have been the weakest out of like the top 4 teams that we're looking at, like LPL and LCK. We'll have to see if Cloud9 can cause the upset tomorrow, but it feels like as you start to move forward, we need to see BLG take a step up. G2 really did challenge them today, but there was mistakes from Elk, there was mistakes that came through at different moments that will be punished and cost you games against some of these top teams.
Frankly, I wish I could get you to chime in, but I can't because I hear that Gigabin is ready to chat in our Verizon post-game interview.
Thank you very much, guys. An absolute dominating performance on the side of BLG in this last game. And Bin, thank you so much for joining me after this one. It was really different compared to the rest of the series. A lot of back and forth during the first game. This one was such a stomp. Explain to me why this game went that way.
首先，恭喜你们，今天是很漂亮赢下了比赛。不过呢，其实纵观今天的一个系列赛，特别是前3把，特别是第1局，感觉好像打的是有来有回的，但是最后1局是属于你们的一边倒的局势。所以说，为什么第4局可以以这样的一种很强势的面貌赢下来呢？
首先我觉得 GTU 今天打得非常好吧，然后也是没有想到他们是这么强。然后虽然说我们前3把打得有来有回了，但是我觉得。 我们最后一把，因为我们是接了先锋团嘛，所以我觉得这个很关键。我们前几把其实都没有怎么接先锋团。
First of all, I must say G2 performed so good for today's best of 5. And to be honest, their performance even beyond my expectation. They're such a good team. And I think why we are able to have a very smooth last game is because we really take that Rift Herald team fight for the last game. But the reason why the first 3 games maybe can be back and forth a bit shaky is because we just made less Rift Herald team fights. So I think that's a key point.
All right, well, thank you so much for these insights on this. And I love the fact that you're maybe one of the most experienced players within this BLG lineup. You won MSI last year. Have you been helping the younger players getting ready and managing the nerves coming into this best of 5 series?
那其实，在整个 BLG 当中，我们冰选手也是非常有经验的，而且你也是参与了去年的 MSI 嘛，所以说想问一下，可能特别是在这一场 BO5 开始之前，有没有和其他更为年轻的队友们稍微分享一些经验，然后帮他们缓解一下情绪呢？
因为我们上一场比赛其实是被3比0的嘛，所以希望不要，就是上一场不会影响到我们这一场，所以我就跟他们说，我们这场只要好好发出我们的实力，就算我们之后真的打不过，那也不留遗憾就好了。所以我们今天就是这样过来打的。
To be honest, before today's game, we lost with a 0-3. So we don't want that to affect our performance today. So I just told my teammates we would like to focus on our own performance. We try not to leave any regrets on this stage, no matter what the result is.
Staying focused and focusing on your own performance. I'm wondering what is the expectation for you, Bin? You're coming back as the MSI champion from last year. How has been your experience so far at MSI? Do you feel stronger than last year? And what about the competition and the rest of the teams?
那也想问一下，冰选手对于这一次 MSI 的一些感受，包括说你的期待，因为去年其实你也是捧下了冠军奖杯，那这一次再一次来，会觉得有什么不一样，或者说自己有变得更强的地方吗？那同时，对于这一次整个 MSI， 包括其他的队伍整体，你有什么样一些的感受吗？
我觉得今年的 MSI 整体实力肯定是更强的，因为不仅是赛区都有2个战队，而且还有双败赛制，所以。 如果今年想夺冠的话是更艰难的，但是也给了我们机会嘛。我们虽然说上一场我们输了，但是我们只要再赢下来， 再赢接下来2个比武，我们就可以进决赛，然后我们也会想办法复仇京东的。
Definitely, I must say for this year's MSI is much tougher because there are more strong teams joining into the MSI. Some regions we got 2 teams and we got the double elimination, the new format. But we just don't worry about that. We just would like to try our best. If we can just focus on own performance to win another 2 best of 5, we can still get into the final.
Definitely less worries about after 2 days of series. Last question for you, Bing. I know that you said on social media that you wanted to try to say something in English. You did during the play-in stage, but there's way more people today at Copper Box Arena. Anything you want to say in English for your fans today?
其实呢，之前好像在社交媒体上，我们的斌就有说，哎，想秀一秀自己的英文。其实，在之前入围赛的采访当中，你也是秀了一下自己的英语实力。但是今天在现场来了更多支持你的粉丝朋友们，所以说有没有什么想用英语来说的呢？
I now here have so many EU fans, LPL fans, and I think G2 is very tough. They are very tough, and we win G2. But I think this is that we more strong. So now we are very strong. We can win Genji, CDG, and T1. So thank you.
Thank you so much for making the effort. Thank you so much for the interview. Wendy, a pleasure having you on stage next to me. As always, and Shots, back to you in cool down.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ben has been practicing his English. For people that don't know, I believe he watches a lot of WWE, if I recall, and then other TV shows
I noticed
to
one
learn.
Thing.
So
he
yeah.
didn't say he was going to beat Cloud9 though. He said it's.
He did not say that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of
I think there's a reason for that.
So we're in.
I love it. He's not just like a top player. He's a PR god as well. That was excellent. I gotta say, and big shout out to Bin and to BLG. They move on here at MSI, still in that lower bracket, but taking lessons from every game they play. And let's recap Game 4 because I feel like it was obviously very up and down the whole way, but something that stayed consistent was that bot lane for BLG.
Yeah, and even though this wasn't, hyper carry, Jinx, hyper carry, Aphelios, this is why they are so strong on the Lucian Nami, right? Like here you see Elk, Lucian.
Boy.
Yeah,
Han the tidal wave.
He wanted to go swimming. What can I say? Swim back to Berlin.
Not even a lane.
No. It's okay. Please, chat. Keep talking.
Lucian Nami's good.
Yeah.
It was a point I had before the series. It was banned by GDG in Game 1 of the BLG JDG series, so it's probably his strongest thing. Like, on one hand, they forced G2 to push them off the Aphelios. On the other hand, that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted an easy angle to pick Lucian Nami. They got it, and they won.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see Elk pop off in these team fights. When I was talking about their Lucian Nami, Yike actually did a pretty good job trying to focus down on that bot side in the early game, but it was the mid game, right? It was, as Ben said in the interview, the Rift Herald fight. It was then all of the Drake stacking they were able to do. And they were able to just rotate Elk around either for skirmishes or to take turrets. And that is also the power of the Lucian in this game.
Yeah, we see that, of course, G2 absolutely crushed. We saw Isma Romain and Broken Blade, who's probably, of course, taking this to heart very, very much. Because I feel, well, with everyone else, of course, but he probably felt with the picks that he was showing and with the play that he wanted to show, that he probably wanted to show just a little bit more, but they just ran into a very strong team fighting BLG.
They did, and it's also going to be a little while until he wants to watch this series again, because there's a lot of things that could have happened a little bit differently in this series that I think could have had G2 winning it. And I kind of, if I'm trying to see what Broken Blade is feeling in that moment, he's like, I could have done this one little thing. Hans could have flashed the charm in Game 3, right? There's a couple little things. And it's an elimination game, so it's even harder to then watch us be like, BLG did all these great things, and Lucian Nami, and they're so good. He's like, that could have been us.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that absolutely could have been G2 with a few things being different.
But the fact of the matter is, it's not a best of one. You actually have time to rectify your play, and if you can't get it done in a best of 5, you just don't deserve to go on, and that's the reality of our game.
I did really like the respect that Ben was giving them, though, talking about G2 being a strong team and showing up here because, yeah, the Western teams have been considered underdogs the whole time, and this was a pretty strong showing.
I mean, for a neutral, it was probably extremely fun to watch. And for Elk, it was probably fun to play, except for that oopsie, but it didn't matter in the end. Our 1+ player of the series is Elk, and continuously surprising people, I think, throughout this year's particularly, Emily.
Yeah, just to remind people a little bit of Elk's story, he has tried to get to the international stage with Team WE for years. I think a lot of people kind of just thought he was washed as going on BLG. They were like, Elk, not really a player who's going to carry you to an international tournament. But at this tournament, we've seen him really step up. And again, I know the casters reiterate it. We've been reiterating it on the desk. It's how you play around that carry so they can perform doing damage from the backline. And that's what you saw from BLG today.
Yep, they did that masterfully. And it was the expectation that it would be like that. But I think what also struck me is when we saw the post-game breakdown and kind of the goal difference over time in that game 4, when there were times in the series when G2 was able to get on the front foot and accrue an advantage for themselves. But there's such a big difference between how BLG drove those games home in comparison to those.
Yeah, an average damage per minute, 900. If you remember, one of his games, I think, was 1,200 on the Aphelios. And he did end up just under 40% of his team's total damage.
Yeah, and their whole draft is revolving around getting the bottom lane duo. You know, first the Aphelios Lulu, then the backup for the Lucian Nami. And he's really played with so much confidence. So much so that despite even the one Gale Force little bit of a throw one, he still gets the player of this series because that featured matchup between him and Hansama was what determined these games.
Correctly featured.
We
were talking
we
about
did it.
Hans had some big moments. He had some blunders as well. It was so much about the AD carries.
We were talking about, maybe we do Bin versus Broken Blade. Maybe that's something we're like, should be something different. I think it was Emily says, we always do top lane. I know it's interesting, but it's going to be about the bot lane.
It was an interesting side story up there.
Yeah, yeah, you were right. But yeah, I mean, and I think for all the players, of course, that get knocked out, there's all these little things. I think Caps will not be completely happy with what he was able to show in the entirety of MSI, just like the tapering off in domestically. Hansama, who has never played at an MSI, and I think who with getting back to G2 and finally getting his first title, also wanted to make sure that he could prove that on the international stage. And I think that on top, like compounded with everything, will be difficult. Yike had a great first international tournament, but you know, it's just like, it's sad.
She says with the biggest smile that I've seen.
Do you need some help? I got some coke for you.
Okay, I'll huff that. I mean, why am I huffing it? They're out. Like, what? They're not going to come back.
Caps will be back.
Unfortunately.
For tomorrow when you join on the Cloud9 train.
Yeah, first though, as G2 Esports is eliminated from MSI 2023, let's hear it one last time from them with Lore and Dylan Falco in the Verizon post-game interview.
And we're back here at MSI 2023 after the elimination of G2 Esports. Dylan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. How do you reflect on this series? I know that you were just mentioning that Game 3 maybe was the most difficult one because you say you should have won this, but yeah, any first impressions on today?
Yeah, I think there were 2 games where there was, I guess, a pretty big throw from either side. Game 2 for them and then Game 3 for us. I think we came into the series today really feeling like we were favorites and have a very good chance of winning. I think that being at this tournament for the last 2 weeks, I've never felt playing these Asian teams so much that it was so doable. And I think that really makes this loss hurt a little bit.
I can imagine, and also I was just with Ben on stage and he had so much respect for you guys, so much respect for what you achieved, and not that he underestimated you guys, but he was actually surprised that G2 showed that much today. Tell me about the preparation coming into this series, because I know that during trainings things were going well. This is a team that you knew, so what didn't come quite together today, and how did you prep for this series mostly?
Yeah, actually we played against BLG quite a bit in the past few weeks, so I think both teams knew a lot about each other's playstyle. I think that we did a very good job of creating some team comps that kind of countered a lot of the champs Bin likes to play, for example. I think in the first 3 games, I think we got that off pretty well. And if the games were reasonable, I think we had a good chance. I think they definitely had a good idea on picking Lucianami in the last game. Just the way the bans were, just like so many of the champions that can actually threaten Lucianami were all eliminated. So they saw the opportunity to just pick it really early, and I think that definitely caught us off guard a bit.
Any reflections on that run and learnings that are going to help you perform in the LEC? That is starting soon, actually.
I actually think we learned so much at this tournament. I think the first thing we learned is that we're actually a very strong team, and we can take games off of any team in the world. We did it right in both of our best of fives, and I think we played a lot of very close games. I think we also learned a lot about where our mid game was kind of cracking under pressure. Just little things where if you move the wrong way, macro-wise, these teams will just take a lot on the map. And maybe we're not as decisive. I think we learned a lot about Baron as well. We threw some games at Baron in the first set. We won some Baron situations in this set as well. And actually seeing how these teams play these situations, you can actually take and learn a lot. So, yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you for a great run on the audience perspective. It didn't quite come close the way you expected today, but yeah, thank you on behalf of EU fans and Western fans, Dylan, and looking forward to seeing you guys again in summer.
Thank you.
And Shox, back to you.
Thank you so much. And the hope, of course, is that with the fact that they played many more international best-ofs and they have a lot of experience, that they can take them back. And you might say it's cope, but this roster in this iteration has only played together for a few months. And Yike is a rookie. And you know what? That's good. I'm proud of them.
Defy the expectations.
I'm proud of them. But they're still out, and it's BLG that moves along. So let's pull up the bracket to see, because they do get a day respite. Tomorrow is C9 versus Gen G, also in that lower bracket. So let's start with that, Jat.
I think that it is unlikely that C9 wins, but that doesn't mean they won't. So just looking at it, Gen G, they had such a close matchup against T1, who now many people are considering to be the favorite in this series. They have a huge amount of skill. Cloud9 still, to me, hasn't looked necessarily that calm on stage. I hope that the stability that they found in their series against Golden Guardians can be carried through to their Gen G series. But even talking to Blabber, he knows and he acknowledges that these teams are just better mechanically and macro-wise than any team they play at home. So they really have to be at their very best and then also probably get a little lucky.
I think their best shot is simply trying to copy the T1 blueprint. Yes, that's hard. Of course, you know, you're setting a very high bar there, but that is a very good blueprint with how much effort T1 put into getting their bottom lane ahead. You know, going as far as to have 5 people down there, going for these red side invades, going for these tower dives, doing everything they can to try and lift up Berserker to have a similar effect. You know, that's kind of your hope. Of course, it's going to be incredibly difficult, especially the Chovy versus MNS matchup in the mid lane. That is going to be rough.
Hey, crazier things have happened. Not recently.
That's what I like to hear.
Not recently.
That's what I like to hear.
It's really good.
Emily, final notes. BLG still in the lower bracket. Will go up against the winner, of course, of Gen G and Cloud9. I've asked you this when we were in the pause as well, but I feel like every time they go up against an opponent, people are like, oh, this is going to be closer than people think, or this is like winnable. But it seems like they are taking everything from every single series they play and should not be underestimated.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for BLG is I would still like to tighten up some of the mistakes, because obviously they fight, right? And not every fight they choose is going to be advantageous for them. And sometimes they get away with it, and then at other times they're punished. We saw that in the JD series. We saw that in today's series. So if there's one thing that they should look at, and I'm sure they are, like going forward, it's, okay, when are we actually taking these team fights, right? And like, how are we setting up for them? Not just posturing around mid and then, you know, Gale forcing it into die. You know, like they had some small moments where they did not have to take some of these fights. They could have backed off, set up more advantageously for themselves. And not just in the series, it's something we've seen from this team over time. So going forward, that's going to be a big thing for them. I did at least like their drafting better today than I did in the C9 series. I'll say that.
And they have experience of rising up through the lower brackets. So we'll see how they do with their information.
And then losing to JD.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to go that far. But hey, it's a bummer for us EU fans. But hopefully you'll be able to cheer for all the other teams, because they're going to show us some great League of Legends. And, you know, we're all here. It's fun. Come join us. And now we're going to say goodnight for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow, same place, same time, with Cloud9 versus Gen G in another elimination match. Bye-bye. Cheerio.
Bit of a mistake, but we're back to live.
indeed. Already Cyclone being used. Caps is just solo killed by Shun. To make place for the rest of the squad. Nature's Grasp will force the flash. Rocket grab onto On. You used this flash a second ago. Remember what I said about Mickey and the kills? He does it for G2!
G2 desperately tries to get a kill, get someone.
The barrel into the pit. Elk is the focus, but he flashes over the wall. He's on the other side of the rift. The G2 Esports are split. They're routed in the blink of an eye. BLG dominate G2. Inside the pit, G2 have secured a McCann. They finish the fight.
Oh my God.
Vigil has done so much damage.
But that's the thing. It's like, even if you get the... Oh, hang on.
Oh, beautifully done. 4 members of G2 chasing. The weak are scattered, and Yagao's wild growth manages to keep him alive. Letalon falls just short. Zap tags onto Elk, and he flashes forward through it. Ben finds another. He used his flash earlier, and G2 find the kill. They find the shutdown. They find life in London. It's time to get excited as Hunt Summer and G2 come alive. They clear the launch. The health picks. The jump from Yagao. Big Death Rocket goes wide. Moonlight Vigil just about does it.
We'll go. Nice. Wait. Hey, Abilia's no team. We win. I can flash. No.
Hunt Summer down. G2 are running for their lives. Elk stays alive. Broken Blade is killed. Mickey is killed. The ebb, the flow, the Aqua President. As the engage now goes forward, Elk will be dropped. Hunt Summer and Mickey find that kill. Plus, 3 members of G2 are down. It's all up to Broken Blade, and it's not going to be enough. BLG will eliminate G2 from MSI. BLG advance to the next stage in their lower bracket run towards finals.